My name is Ava Lancaster, and I remember the exact moment I stopped believing in love. It wasn't when I caught Julian with her. It wasn't even when I read the betrayal in court filings stamped with his signature. It was the moment he called me unstable in front of a judge using the same voice he once used to say I do. Let me rewind. Julian and I built something rare, not just a marriage, but a legacy. Together, we founded Horizon Vault, a data security firm that started from a rented office the size of a shoebox and grew into a multi-million-dollar powerhouse. I handled the structure, the logic, the product. He charmed investors. We were unstoppable. At least that's what I told myself. People loved us. We were the couple on every tech magazine, the brains and the brand. But beneath the gloss cracks were forming hairline fractures in loyalty that I didn't want to see. Julian always had a taste for power, but it wasn't until Horizon's valuation crossed 100 million that I realized he was intoxicated by it. And that's when she entered. Her name was Camilla Thorne, legal counsel, Harvard educated, cut glass cheekbones, and a whispery voice that always ended in question marks so men would fill in her confidence for her. Julian hired her without consulting me. Red flag number one. But I was too exhausted to fight. That was mistake number two. I found the texts 6 months later. They weren't just flirtations, they were blueprints of betrayal. Messages like, if she flips out, we can argue she's spiraling again. Paper trails there. If we move the IP into the shell before year end, she won't see it. You deserve to lead Jay. Not babysit. Babysit. That's what I'd become to him. A liability in my own empire. I confronted Julian expecting a fight, but he didn't even flinch. He smiled. You want a divorce? He asked. Let's do it. But we do it right. No drama. Let's stay professional. I was still trying to believe that some part of him cared. I didn't realize he'd already filed. I received the court summons 3 days later. He moved fast, too fast. Pages and pages of allegations, erratic behavior, emotional instability, misuse of funds, even claims I screamed in meetings, something I never did. He had a signed affidavit from Camilla, sworn statements from 2 executives, both of whom owed their positions to Julian. I didn't cry. I stood in front of the mirror, memorizing the lines on my face, whispering, "This is how they'll paint you. This is the character they'll play on stage." And then I walked into the courtroom for the first hearing. The judge, older male, distracted, barely looked at me. Julian's team 6 attorneys, coordinated suits, polished smiles. I had one lawyer, Emily. Smart, loyal, and underprepared. Not her fault. We were outgunned, outfunded, and worse, outmaneuvered. The worst blow came on day 3 of proceedings. Julian's side submitted a psychological evaluation. Apparently, during our fundraising period, I had exhibited signs of manic depressive cycles. It was based on cherry-picked entries from my private journals and a therapist I saw during the pandemic. And then Julian stood. He looked at me like a stranger, cold, composed, the same man who used to tuck my hair behind my ear before I spoke at panels. "She's brilliant," he said to the judge. "But brilliance and stability don't always go together." That line stayed with me. The judge nodded. By the end of the month, I was declared unfit to hold majority control of the company. The court granted Julian temporary executive authority in the interest of Horizon's stability. My stake was frozen, my voice silenced. They didn't fire me, they erased me. And the public, they believed his version. Julian was careful, charismatic. I was the emotional one. The woman who cracked under pressure, the cautionary tale. I stayed silent. Not because I didn't want to scream, but because I knew a scream wouldn't save me. It would only prove them right. Instead, I walked out of court and disappeared. No press statement, no Instagram meltdown, no insider leaks. I vanished. 3 years. 1,092 days. That's how long it took to dismantle a monster. But this part, the part you just read, this was just the first cut. And Julian, he thought it was the kill shot. He had no idea I was still breathing, or that the next time we'd face each other in court, I'd be the one holding the blade. They thought I was gone. They assumed that because I didn't scream, I had surrendered. But surrender looks nothing like silence. And silence, if used well, can become the sharpest weapon. After the verdict, I didn't go back to my loft. I didn't pack my things. I didn't even return to Horizon Vault to collect the framed article they wrote about us in Forbes. Instead, I walked straight into a rented flat downtown with peeling walls and a view of a dumpster fire. How poetic, and I sat, still, breathing. I did not mourn. I watched. For the first time in 10 years, I didn't have a schedule. No investor dinners, no pitch decks, no fake smiles, just time. And time is dangerous in the hands of a woman who's been betrayed. I started with the basics documents. I requested every court filing, every contract Julian had submitted in the divorce proceedings. I combed through them, line by line, page by page, with the patience of a surgeon and the rage of a ghost. He had moved fast. Too many forms had been signed in my name after the separation date. Too many board decisions had been made without unanimous consent. And one particular clause buried in a tech vendor contract gave me pause. A small software module listed as Legacy Cloud Recovery Framework had been sold off quietly for just under market rate. On paper, a minor asset. But I recognized the code, it was mine. I built it alone one summer in Croatia while Julian partied in Ibiza with potential partners. That code was never meant to be monetized without me. He had started selling pieces of me behind my back under my name. So I did what any woman who's been burned would do. I built a bonfire. Not publicly. Not yet. First, I assembled a team. Quietly, carefully. An old friend from MIT, Isaac, now a forensic accountant for high net worth divorces. He owed me a favor. A cybersecurity analyst named Mira, who once lost her job after Julian shut down a pilot project she was leading. She didn't even ask for payment. And then there was Claire. Claire was the wild card, an estate litigator with courtroom flair and a hatred for men who smiled too much in depositions. She read my case file in 23 minutes, looked at me across the table and said, "If you're not here for revenge, you're wasting my time. But if you want to dismantle him slowly, piece by piece, I'll give you your silence back." I nodded, and the war began. We called it Phase 0. Our job wasn't to attack. Not yet. It was to observe. We watched Horizon Vault's filings, tax records, payroll shifts, trademark changes. We built a private archive of Julian's digital footprint, every photo, every podcast appearance, every public lie. And in that process, we discovered cracks. Julian had moved part of the Horizon IP portfolio into a Delaware-registered shell company, Blackthorn Tech, under Camilla's name. They were selling proprietary modules through Blackthorn to Horizon at inflated prices, creating the illusion of external innovation and funneling profits out the back door. That's when I smiled for the first time in months, because in his greed, Julian made a fatal mistake. He signed my name again on a patent transfer form, post-dated, forged. It was a small error, but in court, a forged signature is a loaded gun, especially when it's tied to intellectual property worth tens of millions. Isaac said it best. You don't need to scream, Ava. You just need to wait until the rope he tied around your name strangles him instead. So I waited, but not idly. I launched a new company under the radar, Oralith, registered in Luxembourg, seed funded through angel investors I'd mentored years ago. Nobody knew I was behind it. Oralith's mission: restoring digital assets lost through unjust court rulings. Ironic, right? Our first client, a startup whose founder had been pushed out by a board coup led by none other than Camilla Thorne. We helped him recover his licensing rights through arbitration. It made waves in legal circles. Julian didn't notice, not yet. He was too busy celebrating Horizon Vault's IPO. He rang the bell at NASDAQ with Camilla on one side and my former CTO on the other. They clapped, smiled, toasted champagne. But behind the scenes, Oralith was buying up fragments of Horizon's infrastructure legacy code, former patents, third-party APIs I once touched through shell companies and private bids. Every asset we reclaimed was another nail, and still I said nothing. People ask me sometimes, why didn't you go public? Why didn't you tell your story? Because stories only matter when people are ready to listen. And people weren't ready. They saw a hysterical woman in court. They needed to see a composed storm next. So I waited until Julian made his second fatal mistake. He invited me to speak at a Women in Tech summit. I laughed for an hour straight when I got the email. Of course, it wasn't him personally, it was his marketing team. They wanted to show Horizon as reparative, inclusive, forgiving. Forgiving, he tried to erase me, and now he wanted me on stage. I said yes. I walked into that summit in a navy dress and no makeup, just a single slide. One logo, Oralith, and the tagline, "If they stole your legacy, we'll take it back." When I finished my 10-minute talk, I walked off stage and didn't look back. By the next morning, 7 Horizon Vault partners had reached out for clarification. Julian didn't sleep that weekend, neither did Camilla, because somewhere buried in the mountain of paperwork they'd buried me under, they missed the one clause that would become their undoing. A non-transferable license authored by me, signed by the original CTO, linked to Horizon's security backbone. If voided without my consent, it triggered automatic audit proceedings under federal intellectual property law. They had voided it 3 months ago. Without noticing, I wasn't gone. I was underneath them, rising, and the next time we'd meet, it wouldn't be at a summit. It would be in a courtroom, and this time I'd be the one bringing the fire. For a long time, I thought I didn't want revenge. I told myself I wanted peace, closure, maybe even clarity. But that was a lie I wrapped in civility to make my survival look more palatable. The truth is, I didn't want revenge until they laughed at my ruin. It was the gala that broke the final thread. Horizon Vault's 10th year anniversary, red carpet, spotlights, a celebration of Julian's vision and Camilla's innovation. Not a single mention of the woman who co-founded it in a hoodie with busted seams and ramen noodles for dinner. They projected a timeline on a massive LED screen, the evolution of Horizon. It started with Julian, and then suddenly Camilla. I didn't exist. I had been rewritten out of history. What they didn't know was that I had purchased the rights to that event's venue 3 weeks before it was booked under an LLC called Ghostlight Properties. They paid me $80,000 in rental fees. I smiled as they toasted in the hall I now owned. That was the night I stopped playing defense. From that moment on, everything I did was designed to extract consequence. The first move was subtle. I commissioned an audit. Not the kind that tips off alarms, no subpoenas, no red flags. Just a private, meticulous review through Oralith's legal arm. Every internal transaction Julian approved in the last 18 months. Every licensing agreement he modified. Every legacy product he touched without consulting original authorship. It took my team 37 days. On day 38, I held the dagger. Julian had unknowingly triggered Section 7B of the U.S. Digital Ethics Compliance Act, a clause that required full disclosure of software authorship in any company filing for federal contracts. He'd filed for a defense data bid 3 weeks prior, and he'd used my code, without attribution, without legal transfer, without my signature. That's not just unethical, that's federal fraud. Still, I didn't confront him, not yet. I let it simmer while I worked on something far more elegant, ownership. See, Julian thought he had the empire, the building, the IP, the team, but Horizon Vault wasn't just lines of code and clever branding, it was an ecosystem. Vendors, platforms, third-party providers, infrastructure built on decade-old relationships, many of which I forged, and I still had their loyalty, so I began to buy them back, quietly, strategically, under aliases, trusts, silent partner deals. I bought the cloud migration service they used for real-time backup Nebula Stack, then the UX design firm they outsourced to, then their internal server lease through a middle broker. Julian didn't know. He was too busy expanding, too busy glowing under the praise of magazines that once chased me. What he didn't realize was he was now renting his future from me. And then came the final humiliation. He and Camilla posed on the cover of Tech Legacy Weekly Power Couple of the Next Decade. I remember the quote beneath his picture like it was burned into my skin. Ava was brilliant, but emotionally volatile. I needed structure. Camilla gave me that. Brilliant. But emotionally volatile, the oldest, laziest way to erase a woman, make her feel unstable, make her story seem erratic, make her silence look like guilt. That was the moment I decided I wouldn't just bankrupt him. I would rewrite the story. The first public whisper came through an op-ed I published anonymously under a pseudonym, The Ghost Founder. It traced the journey of a female entrepreneur erased from her own legacy by legal manipulation and systemic bias. It went viral in under 48 hours. Shares, podcasts, panels. Camilla issued a vague tweet that backfired. Julian posted nothing for once. People started asking questions. Oralith surged in silent power. We doubled clients in a week. Former Horizon employees reached out. 2 board members resigned quietly, and all the while I remained unseen. Until the invitation came, the Legacy Arbitration Summit, an exclusive high-level conference for tech leaders and federal innovation watchdogs. Julian was the keynote speaker, and for the first time in years, I RSVP'd as myself. Ava Lancaster, founder, architect, and soon-to-be executioner. Claire, my litigator, begged me to play it safe. Don't show your face until we're ready to file, she warned. But I had to see him. I had to watch his expression when the ground shifted under his feet. So I went. Minimal makeup, tailored suit. A press pass I didn't need but wore anyway. He was already on stage. The room smelled like polished glass and arrogance. His voice dripped confidence as he described Horizon's unparalleled commitment to transparency. I stepped into the back row. He didn't see me, but Camilla did. Her face cracked first, just a flicker. But it was enough. Julian turned, caught her gaze, followed it, and froze. Just for a second, just enough. I didn't move, I didn't smile, I just stared, and then I left. I didn't need to speak. Because the next day, my lawyer served Julian a summons for corporate fraud, intellectual property theft, breach of contract, and perjury. Filed in federal court, backed by authenticated code logs, patent timestamps, and the original NDA signed in 2016 filed in my name. The last page of the lawsuit featured one name, Ava Lancaster, and a timestamp that read, filed 10:01 a.m. Room 4B, the same courtroom where she was once silenced. You see, revenge was never the point. Redemption wasn't either. What I wanted, what I needed was truth. Public, documented, undeniable. The next time I'd see Julian would be in court again, but this time the judge wouldn't hear from him first. He would hear me. Not the woman in a hoodie from 10 years ago. Not the unstable ex-wife they painted, but the ghost founder who built the stage, disappeared beneath it, and now was ready to burn it down. The courtroom looked smaller than I remembered. Funny how a place that once swallowed me whole could now feel containable. Tame, almost. Like it wasn't a battlefield anymore, just a stage. I walked through the doors with nothing but a USB drive in my coat pocket and 27 months of silence trailing behind me like a loyal shadow. Julian was already seated at the plaintiff's table, surrounded by suits, too expensive to blink, 6 attorneys, Camilla to his left, a smirk on her face like the kind you wear when you think the test has already been graded. But they didn't know I wrote the exam. Claire sat beside me, calm, prepared, deadly. Her briefcase was a loaded weapon. She didn't need theatrics, just facts backed by timestamps, contract chains, and 2 federal-level subpoenas. This wasn't a lawsuit anymore. It was an autopsy, and the corpse was Julian's illusion of control. The judge, same one from our divorce trial, looked over his glasses as if déjà vu had just slapped him. He straightened, cleared his throat. "Ava Lancaster," he said, blinking like he couldn't believe I was real. "You're back in my courtroom." I smiled, not warmly, not bitterly, just factually. "Yes, Your Honor. But this time I'm not here to defend myself." A murmur rippled across the gallery. Julian didn't look at me. He couldn't. I wasn't a ghost anymore. I was gravity. Claire stood first, introduced the case with surgical poise. "Your Honor, this is a civil action seeking injunctive relief damages and restitution for intellectual property theft, misappropriation, falsification of contract documentation, and willful fraud." She paused, let the words hang in the air like the scent of gasoline, by Mr. Julian Blackwell. The room exhaled soft disbelieving. She continued, "We will provide time-stamped code comparisons emails, recovered through federal compliance protocols and audio, evidence directly implicating Mr. Blackwell and his legal advisor in a coordinated scheme to transfer ownership of patented software without the legal consent of the rightful co-author, Ms. Lancaster." The judge raised a brow. "Audio." Claire glanced at me. I gave a single nod. "Would you like to hear it now, Your Honor?" she asked. He gestured toward the monitor beside his bench. "Proceed." I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out the USB, walked forward. Julian still didn't look up. I plugged it in. The screen flickered to life. The audio began Julian's voice. Clear, confident, reckless. The key is she's silent. If she doesn't speak, we own the narrative. Make her look unstable just once in court, and the rest folds like paper. Camilla responded in the recording. Calm, calculated. The IP forms, I'll forge the 2016 dates. She never archived her originals. "No one's going to audit a ghost," Julian again laughing. Then it's settled. She loses everything, and no one will ever hear her name again. The judge froze. So did the jury. So did the world. The only sound was the mechanical hum of the playback ending. I turned, looked at Julian. He was pale, not shaking, not sweating, just undone, like someone had removed the scaffolding from his face and left him to crumble. Camilla tried to speak. Claire cut her off. "Objection." "She is not a licensed counsel on this case," sustained, the judge said, still stunned. "Sit down, Miss Thorne." Sat back, crossed my legs. "I didn't say I told you so. I didn't need to, because now the court knew." Claire continued presenting our evidence. The original code logs from 2014 with metadata tying the files to my laptop, my IP address, my timestamps. The false licensing agreement signed in my name with clear vector mismatches in the digital signature proven by forensic analysts. The shell company Blackthorn Tech and its direct deposits into Julian's offshore account contradicting his sworn financial disclosures. The judge requested a recess. 10 minutes. Julian stood and left the room like a man walking underwater. Camilla followed, whispering furiously into his ear. Claire leaned toward me, whispered, "We've got him." "No," I replied, "we've got them." Because it was never just Julian. It was the system that enabled him. The court that let a man weaponize charm and language and leave bruises without ever raising a hand. This wasn't just personal, it was structural. And today that structure cracked. When we reconvened, the judge spoke first. "Ms. Lancaster, the court is prepared to grant a temporary injunction against Mr. Blackwell's control of Horizon Vault pending a full review of submitted materials." Julian flinched. His attorney whispered, "We request mediation." The judge slammed his gavel. You can request a miracle. Doesn't mean you'll get it. Then quieter, he looked at me. Ms. Lancaster, I owe you an apology. 3 years ago, I believed a version of you that was incomplete. And I signed an order that contributed to your erasure. He paused. Thank you for returning, and for making this court face what it chose to ignore. The room held its breath. I held mine, then nodded. Thank you, Your Honor. I didn't come for revenge. I came for truth. He nodded. Then truth you shall have. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Reporters yelled questions. Ms. Lancaster, do you have a statement? Did Julian Blackwell forge documents? Are you planning to return to Horizon Vault? I raised a hand. They went quiet. All I'll say is this, I said. You can silence a woman's voice, but never her memory. I never left the company. I built it. And today, so did the record. Claire stepped beside me. You sure you don't want a PR team? She asked under her breath. No, I said, smiling faintly. The silence says enough. That night I returned to the same apartment where I had first disappeared. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't ache anymore. I poured a glass of wine, not to celebrate, not even to relax, just to mark the shift, because tomorrow I start buying back what he stole. Not just the company, the name, the legacy, the version of me they tried to erase, and I'll do it the same way they ruined me legally, elegantly, without mercy. It's funny, really. They spent 3 years erasing my name from history, and now they can't go a single board meeting without saying it. Does Ava Lancaster still own the controlling interest in Building 4? Did Ava approve the merger clause? Has Ava signed off on the Horizon Vault restructure? Yes. Ava signed. Ava owns. Ava sees everything now, but Ava doesn't speak anymore. She just executes. It started 1 week after the courtroom fell silent. The federal judge froze Julian's voting rights in Horizon Vault. An emergency injunction barred him from accessing the company's confidential systems. Camilla tried to assume control, citing executive continuity. She didn't realize that continuity had already changed hands. In the 3 years I was gone, Horizon sold off fragments of its own body to stay lean and attractive for IPO buyers. They outsourced systems, licensed code, offloaded non-essential legacy tech, most of it mine. Through Oralith and a spiderweb of shell corporations with poetic names like Ghost Core and Veil Tech Holdings, I bought back 36% of Horizon's infrastructure quietly brick by brick. And now I held the skeleton key. The final move didn't come with a press conference, no memo, no headline, no victory parade. It came in the form of an offer, sealed, delivered to Horizon Vault's remaining board. Oralith proposed a full acquisition of all core operational IP under the condition that the existing leadership resigns and the company is restructured under new ownership. They didn't know it was me, not at first. But money doesn't need a name to be feared. And this money, it was precise, clean, absolute. The board voted 5-2 in favor. And just like that, the company Julian built off my back, my silence, and my erasure became mine again. I didn't fire Julian, I let him stay. Under one condition, he'd serve as a strategic advisor to the new leadership team. He wouldn't own equity, he wouldn't vote. He would report every Monday on the same floor where he once kicked me out. It wasn't about humiliation, it was about exposure. Every hallway he walked down bore my initials now, AL. Every elevator badge programmed under a company registered in my name. Every quarterly report signed off by me. He sat beneath my ceiling and reported to my executives. And every week he had to pretend he was still in control, that the world hadn't shifted beneath him, that the woman he once called emotionally volatile wasn't now the architect of his environment. That is the cruelest form of power ownership without spectacle. Camilla didn't last long. A month after the acquisition, she tried to launch a whistleblower campaign, claiming hostile takeover tactics and gender retaliation. It backfired badly. We released unedited footage of her forging NDA documents, audio of her instructing employees to delete time logs, the same logs subpoenaed in our federal filing. She resigned in disgrace. Her law license was suspended pending investigation. She now teaches corporate ethics at a night school in Connecticut. I didn't have to lift a finger. I just let the truth breathe. There's a new plaque in the Horizon Vault lobby now. Black glass, silver font, minimalist. My style. It reads, "We rise not by silencing history, but by honoring those who built it." AL, nobody questions what it means. Nobody dares take it down. Because every employee in that building knows the founder returned. Not with noise, not with vengeance, but with paperwork, with quiet fire, with the kind of power that never needs to shout. I didn't return to my old office. I gave it to someone else, a brilliant young engineer named Priya, who once coded under a fake name to avoid workplace bias. She now leads innovation for Oralith from the top floor. I sit in a corner office with no nameplate, no desk trophies, just one photo on the wall. It's not of me, It's the original blueprint of Horizon Vault drawn by Handmine back when I still believed in partnerships. Before betrayal, before strategy, before silence became my second skin. I look at it sometimes and wonder who that girl was. Hopeful, naive, sharp in the wrong ways. I don't grieve her anymore. I just respect her resurrection. Julian tried once to ask me why I didn't destroy him. It was during a fire drill. We stood outside the building, awkward, surrounded by employees, pretending not to listen. He stepped closer and said, "You could have ruined me. Why didn't you?" I looked him in the eye for the first time in years and said, "You already ruined yourself. I just made sure the lights were on when it happened." He didn't respond. He just stared at the pavement. That's when I knew this was never revenge. This was justice, timed perfectly. Some nights I still walk past the courtroom that broke me. I don't hate it anymore, because that room didn't destroy me. It revealed me. That version of Ava, fractured, betrayed, underestimated, was never weak. She was sharpening. She was planning. And now every time my name crosses a legal contract, every time a tech investor whispers Lancaster's back, every time a former colleague Googles my name and finds the court transcripts, it reminds them the woman they buried walked out of her own grave, wearing heels and holding the deed to the empire.